Human rights activists say they still don't know the identities of those killed, and many of the passengers' families are still in the dark as to whether or not their loved ones are alive or dead.
Now, the Israelis have insisted that their soldiers came under live fire. They say that there were weapons, there were guns, there were knives on board, and that this is why their soldiers were forced to respond in self-defense. But as more and more eyewitnesses who were on board those ships talk out, we are hearing a very different story. Adam Shapiro is a member of the board of the Free Gaza movement. His wife was on one of those ships, and this is what he had to say.
She told me what happened on her ship when it was boarded by Israeli commandos. People on her ship offered no resistance. However, they were filming and with cameras, and people were punched and subdued with physical force by the Israeli soldiers. They then, of course, wrapped their wrists in plastic cuffs, and then they were taken to prison, to the detention center. In the detention center, my wife was also punched and hit there. And then when she was being released, an Israeli police officer taking her out of the prison elbowed her in the face.
The aggression came from the sky, from the helicopters, where the soldiers came down by ropes. And we waited in a room, in a foreroom, and suddenly we saw some people carrying one Israeli soldier. He was apparently not very hurt. I thought he has a breakdown or something like this. He was led in a saloon behind us, and I saw afterwards he came out. Second and the third came down, but after these three, no Israeli injured or soldier came down. And then I saw a lot, might be over 10 people, passengers, severely hurt, injured with blood, and came down, and they were treated in the saloon next to me. And one I saw personally, I suppose he died immediately, but I haven't seen dying people as well. This was, and we didn't start to go upstairs because this was too dangerous.
But the Israeli army say that they were acting in self-defense, that yes, some of the people on board were armed. Did you see any arms?
No. This is the main argument of the Israeli army in Gaza and here. No, they have been, the attack came up out of the sudden. I never have seen armed men, only 2 men with long sticks like that, one with this. These were the only armed people.
At the same time, we had repeatedly called on the Israelis not to attack our ships, not to use violence. They did radio us. We identified ourselves. We told them that we are unarmed civilians. We have parliamentarians with us. We have reporters with us, doctors, journalists, lawyers, and we are carrying humanitarian aid headed for the Gaza Strip. There is no reason to use force against us. They chose, unfortunately, to use violence. I was on the Challenger 1, which is an American-flagged ship. It was the smallest ship of the ships, the vessels that were on the flotilla. But we were traveling almost side by side with the Mavi Marmara, the Turkish ship, and so I could see the beginnings of the attack on that ship. I could see Israeli naval forces when they approached by sea, and the concussion grenades that they threw in, and also some firing. I don't know what it was in terms of what kind of bullets they were firing, but Israeli commandos were definitely firing. And then the captain took our ship full steam ahead because we were trying to, before we were overtaken, to get some news out to the international community. Unfortunately, all of our satellite systems were jammed, and after about 15 minutes of trying to outrun the Israeli naval forces, they surrounded our ship. They threw concussion grenades on our boat, used tasers, and then boarded, masked, and with their weapons, with their rifles actually cocked and ready, and they also had dogs with them. We tried to get them off just with our bodies and to prevent them from overtaking the ship. They beat many of us. Volunteer ended up with a bloody face. My head smashed against the deck of the boat.
I just want to ask you one other question about this. Now, what our reporter Tim Huell was saying was that he, certainly in terms of the biggest ship, this was not primarily from the bigger ship's point of view about aid. It was about 600 or more so activists protesting about the blockade. Is that the case?
We were carrying 10,000 tons of different forms of aid needed in the Gaza Strip, from reconstruction supplies to school supplies and medical equipment. And while we fully intended, our goal was to reach Gaza with this aid, our goal is not to perpetuate this cycle of humanitarian aid, because that's exactly what Israel's blockade is doing. It is squeezing the people of Gaza, letting a certain small amount of aid in that doesn't meet the needs of the people and is strictly limited to a few kinds of items. So thousands of items are denied entry under the pretext of security, but actually they have nothing to do with security. Like, why won't Israel allow in baby formula or paper, books, oxygen, anesthetics? These are the kinds of things that we were carrying on our ships. We wanted to deliver them because they are much needed in Gaza, but also we need to challenge the policy that leaves Gaza in need of humanitarian aid.
Yes.
Adam, we want to bring you in before the end because in addition to what happened on the high seas, you have the West Bank attack on a young Cooper Union art student, a student in New York who was in the West Bank. Can you explain who she is and what happened?
As you said, Emily is a 21-year-old Cooper Union art student who is there in the West Bank joining the International Solidarity Movement as an activist protesting what's going on in the West Bank. I mean, obviously, Gaza is very bad, but there continues to be land confiscation, home demolitions, the building of the wall in the West Bank. Emily was attending a protest at Kalandia checkpoint demonstrating against what happened to our flotilla. The Israelis opened a barrage of tear gas canisters fired at very close range at her specifically. Eyewitness accounts talk about 2 tear gas canisters being shot right at her feet, and then a third being shot at her head, hitting her in the left eye, I believe. And we have received word from the doctors that she has lost her left eye. This is yet another attack on an unarmed international civilian coming to join the Palestinians in protest, coming to stand up for human